o'clock. Welcome back to Central Valley Talk. We're broadcasting live right now on YouTube TV, Facebook, Instagram, and of course at our home, CentralValleyTalk.com. Austin Reed with you on this 11th of March. It is still cloudy across the Central Valley this weekend, though. It looks like we are going to see more sunshine and highs back in the 60s. Our next guest, standing by live in our Tower District studios, is Sean Charter. He is with First Steps Recovery. We're going to talk to him right after we show you this video. Michael, roll it. So that gives you a nice little look at how peaceful and serene First Steps Recovery is, which is located right in the foothills of Fresno. And joining us live is Sean Charter. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very good, very good. I love your suit. Looking very nice. The pink tie is awesome.
I don't usually wear patterns on TV, but
hey, it looks great. It looks great. And we've got, the Tower District behind us, so it really kind of, and especially the cloud cover today, it really fits very well with the color scheme you've got going on. So thanks for being here. This is my first time interviewing you on Central Valley Talk, and this is your first time on Central Valley Talk. Tell us, first off, what First Steps Recovery is.
Definitely. And I'm actually really excited to be here. I grew up in Tower District.
Oh, you did?
So
Nice.
I'm actually from here, from
Perfect.
this area.
Isn't it cool to be back home?
Yeah, definitely. My mom probably lives a 5-minute walk from here.
Yes.
So super close. So First Steps Recovery is a substance use disorder treatment facility. Essentially, drug addiction and alcoholism, we're here to help. We offer a full continuum of care, which in layman's terms essentially means that we are here to walk our clients through every step of the process, which will then allow them to obtain a sense of long-lasting recovery, long-lasting sobriety, and that's what we're here to do.
Talk a little bit about where your location is, because in that video we just saw, man, it looks so peaceful.
It's truly beautiful. So our main office, which also has our outpatient services, so that's where our partial hospitalization program would be, and our intensive outpatient program, as well as our outpatient and family groups, where my office is and where our clinical director, all of the important people, for lack of better terms, would be, that is on Herndon and Armstrong. So it's a rock throw away from Clovis Community Hospital, but the actual residential houses and detox houses, because we have 3, so it's about 25 minutes into the foothills above Clovis. So that video is a perfect representation of that serene, tranquil environment in which the houses are located. So each of the houses are on 5 acres of property. And then we have a 12-bed detox house. That's where we would have our full medical detox for alcohol and all other drugs. And then we have 2 gender-specific houses. So not only are the houses gender specific in terms of one house being a men's house and one house being a women's house, but the trauma treatment they go through is evidence-based and it is gender specific. Men and women go through different pieces of trauma.
Yeah, no, that is so true. Tell me a little bit about why it's so important for somebody that has an addiction to drugs or alcohol, needs to kind of step outside and go to a program like yours.
What I think is interesting about treatment, because I'm in recovery myself. This month, actually, in a little under 2 weeks, I'll have 4 years.
Wow.
So, one of the things that I've learned about, regarding the education piece of what substance use disorder looks like, there's a particular stigma that's around drugs and alcohol and individuals who would be considered an alcoholic or a drug addict. And I'm really about breaking that stigma, because what a lot of people don't understand is that I refer to it as substance use disorder because it is medically recognized.
Yeah, I mean, it is a disease.
It is a disease that's been recognized since the 50s, and there's been evidence-based treatment since the early 2000s. So that being said, is when we look at the education piece towards where substance use disorder is located in the frontal lobe. That's why things like judgment or rationalization keep us in that destructive cycle, because they're located in the same exact area. But in addition to that, things like triggers, environmental triggers play a huge role outside of the trauma section of things to why not only an addict will use, but they will continue to use when they're trying not to. And so separating an individual from their environment is huge to allow them to develop the coping mechanisms they need, to allow them to analyze and identify triggers, to allow them to work through their trauma away from the factors that cause them to use in the first place.
Talk a little bit about some statistics as far as, do you guys have a sense of if somebody enters recovery, what are the percentage chances of them going back into their addiction? So, I mean, does recovery really help lower that?
I mean, it's called a recidivism rate, right? We look at someone going through treatment and then relapsing. I mean, one thing that I know is it is very difficult to get clean and sober. Very, very difficult. And everyone's bottom looks different. One of the things that we were talking about prior to the show was, that the pandemic we live in. COVID is something that we've dealt with for, someone told me today marks the day that it's been an entire year.
Yeah,
now,
pretty much. Yeah,
I don't have that fact checked, so, but from what I understand.
I remember March 13th watching President Trump and Dr. Anthony Fauci coming out with a massive, press conference. So, yeah, it's been a year.
So that being said, is who reports on things like COVID-19? The CDC, right? The Center for Disease Control.
Yeah.
So we talked about that stigma, but we also debunked that in recognizing that it is a disease. I like to look at what the CDC reports in reference to alcoholism and opioid use, right? The amount of deaths over the last 2 decades, it's probably higher now because this statistic refers to the years of 1998 through 2018.
Okay.
There were almost 450,000 deaths related to opioid overdose.
Holy moly.
Which is a staggering statistic. If we let's look at alcohol. For excessive alcohol use, 95,000 people die per year. Do you know what that breaks down to per day?
No, what?
261 people per day.
Holy moly.
And that's for alcohol. Alcohol is something that's normalized in our society.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is something that I said right before this interview is that, being an addict, I'm not a stranger to a pandemic. I'm not a stranger to an epidemic. We've been living in it for decades.
And what are say somebody that's addicted to meth or somebody that's addicted to painkillers, what are the chances, do opioid addicts have a better chance of stopping the drug compared to somebody that's addicted to meth or crack, heroin?
It all depends. There's the thing when it comes to treatment, there are different clinical models. That's why sometimes you see things like maintenance, right? Drug maintenance,
Sure.
Where someone goes from heroin to methadone, and that's doctor prescribed. Mm-hmm. But what we look for in our program is we do abstinence. So
be done with it all.
We have strict boundaries on our tapers because our goal is to promote, and I keep looping back to this because it's the most important thing, is to promote long-term sobriety. So how do we do that? We shift through the full continuum of care. So it starts with medical detox, and that's where we would medically detox that individual from that drug of choice. Depending on what that is, it looks a little bit different in terms of what the medication is that's used, but it generally lasts between 7 and 10 days, but we have a firm boundary at 10 days. Mm. And then from there, they would transition down to residential treatment. They would go to the respective houses, and then from there, they would have 6 hours a group a day, 7 days per week. So it's truly about rewiring the brain. There's a variety of clinical modalities that go into the treatment that we use, from cognitive behavioral therapy to dialectic behavioral therapy. We also do brain painting, and to put that in, to boil that down, it's rewiring the brain. That's what brain painting does.
Okay.
and and the other two are looking at how behavior impact action and how action impact behavior, or thought impacts behavior, vice versa.
Here in 2021 now, why is there still a stigma?
Because it's not normal. It's not what society dictates as normal behavior for an individual. And I mean, this is another conversation for another day,
Mm-hmm.
but anything different is, to a certain extent, looked down upon. And that's what we experience as addicts.
Well, and even, I feel that anybody and everybody is an addict with something, right? Whether it's coffee or, I don't know, a porn addiction or cigarettes. I mean, I think we all can learn. But, obviously people think, oh, well, if you're a drug addict or you're an alcoholic, oh, well, that's just like that. But so you guys over at First Steps, I would imagine, are really just trying to make somebody who is facing a drug or alcohol problem, make them feel more comfortable. Do you work with families too? Their families?
We do work with families. So we have family groups, we have alumni groups. It's not about having someone come through our program and then we're done. It's about continuing after they leave our program.
Nice.
And that's where our alumni groups, which are free, and our family groups, which are free.
Cool.
Those both come into play with that. And we're really about accessibility. We're huge on being in network with insurance companies and really trying to be as accessible as we can to get people the help they need. And that's a large part of my role. Is my role with First Steps is community outreach. That's the coined title. It means a variety of different things, but essentially what it means is that anywhere at any time someone can pick up the phone and call me and I'll be there to answer. And the reason why I feel that I had this realization when I first ended up getting clean, I hit this horrible bottom. Which, again, that's a story for another time. We don't quite have enough time to talk about that today. But I remember being backed into the corner. I remember having this feeling of hopelessness, that just utter helpless feeling, and being backed in that corner with no answers. Because I always had an answer, but this time I had no answers. But I had someone to call, and I picked up the phone and called. So in my professional life, I realized how impactful it was to be that person. And when I had the opportunity to transition into this role, I felt positive about it, because this role for me isn't just professional, it's personal. And that's very important to me.
Well, and I would imagine too, I mean, family members of, addicts and alcoholics that go into your program feel so much more comfortable knowing that, their loved ones are working with people like yourself who have the real life experience of what it's like to be an addict or an alcoholic. Are you the only one at First Steps that is in recovery?
I am not the only one.
Huh.
Most of us are in recovery, and if we're not in recovery, it's because a family member is.
Wow.
So we all have personal experience, and one thing that I really appreciate about my position here is one of the other reasons why I decided to transition is because meeting with the owner, who's an LMFT by trade, so he's a therapist, I believed in what we're doing here. And the fact that I would send my mom or my sister or my best friend here is huge. That's what I look for, because we have a safe environment that promotes healing. And, an addict comes from, it is my strong opinion that I doubt many would disagree with, that every addict at one point or another will feel that sense of hopelessness. And we're here to give them hope again and to rebuild lives and to, promote just being happy and being able to do it without drugs and alcohol, which I never had thought. If I heard someone like me on live television before I hit my bottom, I would have been like, okay, right? It feels like daunting. It feels like a half truth, or it feels feels unattainable, because I remember that feeling of there's no way this could be true. But I'm sitting here in a suit and I'm alive. I've overdosed. I've looked at going to prison. I've done all of those things. And I'm sitting here in a suit today saying that I am happy.
Right.
And it's not just BS. It just isn't.
Yeah.
I'm happy because I've been given the freedom to do so.
Well, and now, did you ever think when you were in your early 20s or in your teens that you'd work in recovery?
I would I would have never thought. I come from an alcoholic addict household. My father was, both my sisters are, just utter chaos. So one thing I never thought I would be is an addict. I never thought I would be like my father. And another thing, getting clean and sober, I never thought I would do is work in treatment.
Yeah.
Because I had this boundary drawn. I had this boundary drawn between what my personal life looked like and what my professional life looked like. And I held that for more than a couple years. But then the opportunity arose. And the fact that I'm here solely to help others, and I'm allowed to do that as my profession, I love it.
Yeah, I can tell.
There's a sense of fulfillment that comes with it.
You've got the passion, you've got the drive.
It is exhausting.
Sure.
And that's me being transparent, but I will always be there to answer the phone, whether it's a doctor on behalf of a patient, a mother on behalf of their child, a social worker in a hospital, or really anyone. If someone's calling me from jail, I'm here to answer. And if I can't get someone into my facility, I will get them in somewhere
Else. Very
no
good.
matter
You've
what.
got the connections.
100%.
All right, so 1-844-BIG-STEP. What's your number if somebody has a question for you?
So my number is at the top. It's 559-578-7349. That is my personal cell phone number. A little dangerous putting it live, but that's it.
That's okay. Hey,
anyone can feel
if
free
you can
to call
help
me at any time. And that's why I'm here. I am here to help.
Right.
The number at the bottom, 1-844-BIG-STEP. That would also be our intake line.
Okay.
You can call either of those numbers, but if you wanted to get personally to me, that is my direct cell phone number.
Very good. And then you guys have a website, obviously. We were
do.
actually looking at it during the interviews next to you with more information.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you wanted a breakdown of more information, it is available at www.firststepsrecovery.com.
Okay.
And that will give you a full breakdown of the services that we offer, as well as you can find some pictures and a contact page and really anything else that you would like to know.
And it's right outside Clovis.
Right outside of Clovis.
Right outside.
Not too close, not too far.
Exactly.
Just right.
Exactly. Just right. Sean, good to meet you. Thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it. Come back anytime because there's more to talk about. This is something that needs to be addressed, and a lot of stations don't really give the time to get into the story. So come back, like I said, anytime.
I definitely will. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. First Steps Recovery. Get help today. Don't feel embarrassed, all right? 2:30 on your Thursday. We're back with one more live local interview coming up in the 3 o'clock hour, so stay with us. I'm Austin Reed.